can you describe your music taste in a single sentence? And can you do the same thing for the music you're trying to create? This type of question was something that I took for granted for a very long time. The first few years of making music, this is a question that would kind of make me feel like it's an obvious thing. It's like, obviously I know what kind of music I want to make. Obviously I know what kind of music I like, especially if you're an artist, a producer trying to make music. And then yeah, it's in a way a question that needs a little bit more depth and a little bit more understanding to really be helpful. So I spent the first couple of years making music and everything felt very chaotic and eclectic and random. And all the music was music made by me with similar tools and similar techniques, but everything felt very scattered in terms of what the music was that was being born into the world by me. And it basically felt like throwing darts at a dartboard while having your eyes closed. Basically, I am making music, I am throwing the darts, but what happens is very much without any pattern or consistent. So it's a very simple question, but basically your taste is something that dictates your creative decisions. Basically, your own musical taste, what you like, what you don't like, translates over to the music production stage. And as you're making each decision during the music production stage, it's your taste that dictates what is a question that, what is a sound that sounds right, and what is a sound that maybe sounds off. And kind of, again, it's kind of an obvious thing, and yet once I really understood it, it kind of changed everything. It was like, well, now it all makes sense. Basically, it is my own taste. What I like about music is that shapes the direction of the music while I'm making the music. So that basically required me to get a better understanding of my own taste, which then transferred over to the type of music I wanted to make. So basically, I needed to keep throwing darts at the dartboard, but I needed to open up my eyes to what I was trying to achieve. And there's lots of ways to do it, but one that seems strangely obvious now to me was basically trying to clearly understand my music taste. So I think a lot of us kind of fall into this kind of oblivious understanding of our music taste and just going with like, yeah, I like techno or electronic music or hard rave or whatever it is. And then we go and sit down to make the music and we're guided by the same creative direction. It's like, okay, yeah, I want to make techno. And then you just start making stuff, and somewhere on the wall your darts land in the direction of techno. But it's only once you more deeply understand what it is you actually like about music, what it is that kind of sparks your interest and intrigue and fires you up about music, about most likely your favorite tracks and your favorite artists. It's that very clear vision. It's deeply and clearly understanding what it is that you like that basically allows you to open up your eyes or take off your blindfold and aim the darts more closely to the center of the dartboard, which is the type of music, the type of sound that you're trying to make. And you know, there's nothing wrong about making music purely for the sake of making music with no sort of goal in mind. There's a purpose to that personally and creatively, for experimentation. And for some artists, it might just intuitively happen that they will subconsciously, subliminally know, and then they'll transfer that into the sound. for me needed to be a conscious decision. So what I basically did was sitting down one evening and just analyzing exactly my own music taste. So what I did, I basically just listened to my favorite artists, my favorite music, and just tried to identify what it is about all of my favorite sounds that what's in common between all of those things. And kind of this also changed as time went on, but over the past year or two, it's kind of solidified into a common pattern of things that I really like. So I basically found that I really like kind of powerful, rhythmic, commanding low end that kind of works in a club scenario. I also like abstract, unusual, weird sounds and textures that I can't fully understand and I can't kind of recreate. I can't explain it. Stuff like that really intrigues me. And then I also like kind of eclectic, intricate rhythms where lots of different sounds are talking to each other, creating that kind of cohesive, rhythmic listening experience. So those are the three things that I've kind of identified as the thing that I really liked in music and my favorite artists, my favorite tracks. And that was kind of like a eureka moment when I was like, oh, that actually explains exactly what I find fascinating about the music that I enjoy the most. And that ended up being a common pattern that I have also noticed in my own music that I have made in the past that I liked the most, that I just didn't really realize before. So, such a simple thing, but now once I did write it down, but now it's just a thing that I have a deeper understanding on in my head. So now when I'm making music, it's almost like subconsciously that knowledge is guiding my decisions. Basically, when I start creating the low end in my tracks, if the low end feels quite kind of has a little bit of attitude and groove and power and it's quite like warm and chunky, it kind of makes the rest of the track happen so much smoother and quicker because it's like I've tapped into an aspect of my taste so that the next step is something it just feels like I can more clearly see it. So I can more clearly, quickly kind of develop that track, that idea, because the first step is laid out so well that it just kind of quickly rolls into the next one. So there's lots of kind of benefits around that. And yeah, this is something I would really recommend you consider if you are trying to develop your sound, find your musical identity, and just make music with more clarity and with a better vision. And this can change, and this can be very different, and it might be technical, it might be a vibe thing, it might be a mixdown thing, it might be an element, but it's just gaining a deeper understanding of your own taste beyond just the genre or a simple, shallow description of it, and just more deeply understand like what it is that really tickles your brain. And then that creates your dartboard and opens your eyes to it, so that next time you throw a dart, aka sit down in the studio to make music, you have the vision in front of you and you can clearly see what you need to go for, and then things just will happen a little bit more smoothly and naturally, and more consistency will happen. And this helped me immensely in terms of shaping my EPs. It was such a weird thing as well. I would spend kind of months at a time sometimes making music, aiming for an EP, but there was no vision for it. So I would spend months making an EP, and let's say I'd come up with 10 tracks at the end of like a 6-month process. And there was just kind of randomness there. It was just a bit of everything, very little coherency and consistency among them. And then once I identified the things that I liked, all the range of music I was making just really narrowed down into the little box of things that I really liked. And then I would spend a couple months making a whole bunch of tracks, and they all had this consistent aesthetic and feel of like powerful low end, abstract weird textures and sounds and lots of rhythms talking to each other. So even though the tracks were still very different, and I was creatively trying to just make each track the best that it can be, and following my curiosity and having fun, they all shared this common theme among them. That then meant that I could, out of this bunch of tracks, I could pick a few that worked together, and then I had an EP ready. So yeah, I hope you consider that, and this is really helpful if you feel kind of lost creatively or musically or artistically, and you're not sure what you're trying to make. This is something that can kind of bring the spark in you as well, which it definitely did for me. So maybe try sitting down. I mean, it can take anything from like 15 minutes to hours or weeks even, and just thinking, like listening to your favorite artists, to your favorite music, trying to identify what is the common theme between them. What's the feeling, the vibe, the element, something that all those tracks and artists have in common. And this can be different genres as well. There's kind of an abstract idea that just makes sense to you of what those tracks have in common. And then you just write it down, just kind of try to be as specific and as clear as you can about that. And then once you step away and you try to make music, this will kind of subconsciously, slowly start to become a part of your decision-making process that will be reflected among all the process, all the decisions that you make. So it doesn't have to be like a conscious effort, although it might be for some. For me, it just ended up being a much more sublime and subtle guide towards the music that I was making. I didn't really have to think about much, or if I did, it was just like a gentle reminder. Be like, okay, before I sit down or during the process, I would just remind myself, I was like, okay, does this track kind of feel like it's going in the direction of the three things that I like in terms of music? And then that would help me kind of steer the track into the right direction. And then it kind of allowed me to make the music that I like, be more happy with it, feel more satisfied and fulfilled. And then it kind of allowed me to lean in more into my strengths as well. So yeah, I hope you consider that. I hope that becomes helpful to you. And yeah, thanks for watching. There will be another one of these.